Jeffrey Dahmer was an animal. He not only killed his victims, he dismembered them, and then he ate them. He was a cannibal. How could a woman be attracted to somebody like this?
I walk in redemption.
Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is very good, very blessed on this end. And as always, my friends, I give all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving to my God for that. What a topic today, something I never thought I'd be covering. Women that fall in love or are attracted to serial murderers. And I'll tell you how that came about as a result of my coverage of the Menendez Brothers. And some of you have seen the videos. I spent time in jail with them, and I had a lot to say. And ever since then, I've been getting contacted by everybody. Fox News, the Daily Mail, a number of different publications. And I received a letter from, an email, I should say, from a woman, a journalist in the United Kingdom. And that's how this came about, because I asked the question during my video. I said, if any of you know about women that might be attracted to people in jail doing hard time, usually life, let me know, because I don't really understand it. And the way that came about, because both Menendez brothers were married while they were in prison. And I'm happy for them. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they were young when they went in. They were 20 and 18. It was a different kind of case. Yes, there was a murder. Yes, they murdered their parents, but there was some different issues going on. And as a matter of fact, we're hearing about that now because they have an appeal in, and I believe the appeal is very valid. These two young men were absolutely abused by their father and to some degree by their mother, and they lashed out. They murdered them. Is that right? Am I justifying it? No. But what I will say is this. They were abused. It's real. And it was horrifically abused in my view. And they were not allowed to bring in evidence of abuse in the trial in which they were convicted and sentenced to life in prison. They were convicted of first-degree murder. That abuse should have been allowed in. It was powerful evidence, and it was a reason why they lashed out at their parents the way they did. Now, again, there's other ways to deal with that. I'm not justifying the murder, but they should have allowed that in, because definitely, that was a factor that had to be considered. And I believe at the very most they should have gotten was a manslaughter conviction. And if that happens, they're out of prison now. They've already done over that time. They have a very strong motion, in my view, going in, or it's in right now, in front of the court, in front of the district attorney in LA. We'll see what happens. But both of them are married while they were in prison. I think Eric has a 15-year-old daughter, if not mistaken. So, I asked the question during the video, why does this happen? Why are women attracted to people doing life in prison, men doing life in prison, normally for a very serious crime? And I got a letter from a reporter in the United Kingdom, and I'm going to read it to you. This is what she said, and this is how this here topic came about. Dear Michael, I hope you're well. I'm dropping you a line as I enjoy your videos very much. And last night, I watched the one about the Menendez brothers. During the video, you asked that if anyone knows why women fall for serial killers, to drop you a line. I'm a reporter based in the UK, and I wrote about a video created by forensic psychiatrist, and I interviewed the psychiatrist to write about this very topic for the Mail Online. It's an online publication. There are 5 reasons in my article, which you can see here if you are interested in knowing the details, and she shows me the article. The 5 reasons given by the psych are below, and in the article, I explain what he means by them. And I'm going to read the article. It's very, very interesting. But here's the 5 reasons. Number 1, psychosis. Number 2, a history of trauma. Number 3, Saviour complex. Very interesting. Number 4, idealized relationship. An ideal relationship with a serial murderer that's never coming out of prison. I want to hear that one. And number 5, a condition called Hybristophilia, which I'll explain when I read the article. I hope this is of interest and informative. And the reporter's name is Maria Chiarando. So I appreciate her very much reaching out to me. And I think I'm going to read the article to you, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Not enjoy it, but maybe get a little bit of an understanding what attracts women to serial killers. I mean, that's the bottom line. An expert has explained why some women are attracted to murderers like Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer. Could you imagine a woman being attracted to Jeffrey Dahmer? Do you know about the case? We'll get into it. Ted Bundy, another sickie, and Chris Watts, despite their horrific, and they are horrific, violent crimes. Dr. Soham Das, that's a doctor, he's 44 years old. He's a forensic psychiatrist based in London, as well as a YouTube content creator, and he makes videos about mental health topics for his channel, which is called A Psych for Sore Minds, P-S-Y-C-H, A Psych for Sore Minds. And you know, mental illness is a very real condition and a very real issue and problem for many people in this country. And if this fella can help you at all, if you have, I don't know how he communicates, I didn't get into that, but if you want to maybe get some explanations for mental illness, maybe get some help, I think you should go on his platform. I don't know him, I'm not endorsing him, but it could be something that can help you. I don't know. A Psych for Sore Minds. In a recent video, he addressed why some women are drawn to men who commit the most violent crimes, putting forward several explanations from childhood trauma to a condition called Hybristophilia. Explaining the complexities of why some women are drawn to violent criminals in his video, Dr. Das explains, quote, I've mentioned Ted Bundy, but there are also other high-profile murderers, including Charles Manson. You remember Manson? Come on. Jeffrey Dahmer, and the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, who was sent letters and gifts from women all over the world. Women, I know for a fact, were sending Charles Manson love letters, naked pictures. They wanted to marry him. Charles Manson, horrible guy. You know, Jeffrey Dahmer, the same. And Richard Ramirez, you know, it's funny. I leased a house many, many years ago in the San Fernando Valley, and it was a beautiful home there. But after several months, somebody told me that that was a house that Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, who was a serial killer, killed a number of people, had broken into. Now, nobody was home the night he broke into it, but they found out that that was one of the houses. Now, my wife was not comfortable when she heard that, but he was already in jail at that point. But terrible guy. Quote, to me, the Dahmer case is extremely shocking because these pure, kind-hearted women, and remember, these are good women. These are not psychos. These are good women. He explains that pure, kind-hearted women managed to look past the cannibalism. Jeffrey Dahmer was a cannibal. Listen to this. The sex offending, the dismembering, they even looked past his own sexuality and they still swiped right, meaning they still wanted to be in touch with him and in some ways have a relationship. Jeffrey Dahmer was an animal. He not only killed his victims, he dismembered them, and then he ate them. He was a cannibal. How could a woman be attracted to somebody like this? I mean, you know what? I have a glass of wine. And by the way, this is my non-alcoholic wine that we're drinking. We now just came out with it. Tastes really good, no alcohol. So if you want wine during the day, you know, I recommend it. But man, I mean, this is stuff that's hard to imagine. I got to tell you. We move on. The psychiatrist also referenced the more recent case, listen to this, of Chris Watts, who murdered his pregnant wife, Shannon, and their two daughters, Bella, 4, and Celeste, 3, in 2018. He says Chris Watts received love letters and photos from female admirers. One even sent a photo of herself in a bikini to Chris Watts in prison. I mean, come on, ladies, please. If you know anyone or you have any explanation whatsoever, tell me your own experience. Were you ever attracted to somebody of this nature? He killed his pregnant wife. He killed his 4-year-old and his 3-year-old daughter. And women are attracted to him? You know, listen, I understand, you know, the bad boy phenomenon. Women like bad boys. Why? Well, they're men. They're strong. They're tough, you know. Listen, I got to tell you, you know, life in the mob, we had a lot of women attracted to us. They didn't care that we were criminals, but it was different. You know, if we were murdering people, they didn't know about it, you know, and maybe, you know, in the back of their minds, they thought, I don't know. I can't explain it, you know, but this is different. The bad boy syndrome, I get, but this is different. These are serial murderers. I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer, a cannibal. Dismembered the bodies, a cannibal. And there were a lot of young men, remember, that he killed. Ted Bundy, another lunatic. And this guy, Chris Watts, kills his pregnant wife and 2 little baby daughters. And women are attracted to that? Please, if you have any more of an understanding of this, maybe you know somebody that somehow had an attraction to one of these people, Charles Manson, please send me a comment. I want to read about it. I really do. I want to understand it. Okay, looking at possible reasons for this, the first factor Dr. Das cites is psychosis. Okay, psychosis, like you're completely out of your mind. I can almost understand. When you're out of your mind, you'll do anything. So let's read it. He describes a case in which a woman experiencing psychosis believed she was communicating telepathically with a criminal and that they were in a relationship despite the two never having met. Well, that's psychotic. I mean, come on. Telepathically, communicating with somebody you never met. He just happens to be a known figure because of his, crime, and you believe you're communicating with him. Oh, okay, you're nuts. In these cases, he says, the women are mentally unwell. They're not making a rational choice. Crazy, and I don't mean to be demeaning. I don't know who that is. I'm not talking about anybody in particular, but you got to be crazy to be in a situation like that. He adds, and also this is an extremely rare presentation, so we can just sort of put it to the side. Okay, I just wanted to give it an honorable mention. That's the psychiatrist saying. He had to mention it, but it's very rare. Second, number two, history of trauma. This is very interesting. Listen to this. A more common explanation, according to Dr. Das, is a history of trauma. He explains, quote, so they've either been physically, sexually, and or emotionally abused by a partner or by their parents, and they want to repeat this kind of cycle either subconsciously or intentionally. Could you imagine going through a level of abuse that was so bad, basically, that you subconsciously want to repeat it and you choose a serial murderer to repeat it with? In one way, okay, they're never really going to have communication or contact, physical contact with that person, unless they marry that person and have a conjugal visit. But otherwise, it's all in your subconscious. It's crazy. And so, unfortunately, these women tend to gravitate towards what's familiar instead of what's safe. And we see this phenomenon in victims of abuse. It is a crazy thing. Women that are in abusive relationships, for some reason, they don't leave. Quite often, they don't leave. They feel that they're supposed to be a victim, that their husband, their partner is justified in making them a victim, in physically or mentally in every way abusing them. And they don't want to leave. They don't want to go to a safe place. And that really is a mental issue. There's no question about that. It's sad. It's very sad. Sometimes they become abusers themselves. Well, I understand that. You repeat the abuse in, your child or your partner or someone that, you're close with. And tragically, some young girls who witness domestic violence as a child pick abusive partners when they become adults themselves, partly because it's ingrained in them to see violence as a way of conflict resolution. Ladies, violence is never a way of conflict resolution. That's not right. Don't believe your partner if he's abusing you. That's not the way to resolve a conflict. You need to leave and go to a safe place. You need to find something within you. If that abuse starts, it's probably never going to end. And in most cases that I've heard of, when I've read about it in different publications, it doesn't end until something, God forbid, tragically happens. So you're in a relationship like that, you got to get help. You got to get out of it. It's not going to change for the most part. He explains that, ironically, these women feel safe in their relationship with killers because even though they're violent offenders, they're behind bars, allowing the women to actually control and dominate the relationship, maybe for the first time ever. That's really sad. I have to say, that's very, very sad for a woman to have been abused so much throughout their life in such a horrible way that they gravitate towards a serial killer who they know can't physically abuse them, and maybe they're dominating for the first time because they were never able to be dominant over their original abusers. That's very sad, very sad. And I hope to God that if anybody's listening here, any ladies, I hope you're not going through that. But if you are, please comment, let me know. And if there's a way that maybe we can direct you somewhere that you can get out of this relationship, we'd love to help. Number three, Saviour complex. Okay, I can understand this to a degree. There are other cases in which women, quote, feel that they could save or transform the prisoner or the killer, seeing it as a challenge. Well, I can see that in a faith sense. David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, He's been transformed. He came to Christ while he was in prison, and I believe it was a genuine transformation. I did a video on it. I visited David. I've heard from other people that have spent time with him, and that transformation is real. So if you're trying to transform, if you're a Christian, you're trying to transform somebody, or maybe of another faith, and you're trying to transform that person, I get it. And then I guess you can call yourself somewhat of a savior for leading them in the right direction. But if there's anything more to it, if you're going to save a person while they're in there, well, how are you going to know? How are you going to know? You don't know. I mean, they're behind bars. They can't hurt anybody. Normally, if they're doing life and they're that heinous a criminal, they're going to be in lockdown. They're spending their life like Charlie Manson did, in lockdown. But, I can understand the savior complex. 4, idealized relationship. A further psychological aspect cited by the psychiatrist is that, quote, some of these women have this kind of notion of a perfect relationship. Listen to this. By being in a relationship with someone in prison, they don't have to endure the day-to-day issues that are actually involved in most relationships. Well, what kind of relationship was that? If you don't want to be involved in the day-to-day with your partner, with your wife, with your husband, well, what kind of relationship was that? That's what it's all about, being involved in the day-to-day. So again, this is a mental, health issue. This is not normal. He explains, quote, they don't have to go through the mundane stuff. There's no laundry to do. There's no need to cook for him. There's no smelly socks left on the staircase. Okay. But there's also no romantic times. There's no vacations. There's no time together. There's no dinners out. There's no children that are involved. I mean, this is crazy. Again, this has got to be a mental health issue. I don't understand how a woman can want to be with somebody like that and say, well, I don't want to go through any of the tough stuff, but I also don't care about the good stuff. Doesn't make sense. Again, this has got to be a mental health issue, in my view. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. He's certainly smarter than me in that area, but it doesn't sound right. And now we get to number 5. So we did 4. Now we get to number 5. It's a condition called Hybristophilia. The final element Dr. Das touched on was a condition known as Hybristophilia. What is it? Hybristophilia is a paraphilia which is defined by the American Psychological Association as, quote, a group of disorders in which unusual or bizarre fantasies or behavior are necessary for sexual excitement. It's colloquially known as Bonnie and Clyde syndrome, after the American crime couple immortalized in the eponymous film. Those with hybristophilia are deemed to have a sexual interest in and an attraction to those who commit crimes, according to the APA. In some cases, this may be directed toward people in prison for various types of criminal activities. Okay, you get off sexually somehow by somehow being involved with a serial killer or a murderer. That's a tough one also, but let's read what he says. He explains, I think it's very fair to say that some of these women do this because they crave attention or fame. In extreme cases, this is a phenomenon called hybristophilia, which I just defined, otherwise known as the Bonnie and Clyde syndrome. This is a type of paraphilia, I'll mention it again, an intense sexual arousal to atypical objects, including situations, fantasies, behaviors, and particular individuals. Now, I can't comment on this because I've never experienced this, but he's saying that you can get aroused, sexually aroused, to atypical objects, including situations, something that may happen that can sexually arouse you. Fantasies, okay, you can be dreaming a sexual fantasy, I get it. Behaviors and particular individuals. Dr. Das points out that this isn't a phenomenon limited to any particular social economic class, as it has affected all kinds of women. It has also been documented in men, but to a much lesser extent. He says, quote, I've heard there are examples of educated women with careers, including lawyers and barristers, who fell for or married killers who will either be sentenced to death or will never be released. So you have some sexual arousal by being involved with a murderer that was sentenced to death or that will never be released from prison. Again, hard for me to understand that. This psychiatrist goes on to explain that in his opinion, much of this is connected to the celebrity worship And some women have done this very overtly. Yeah, we know that. So they have clearly hoped to share some of the media spotlight or to get a book deal or a movie deal afterwards, he says. And this is all kind of psychologically linked, in my opinion, to conflating being famous and being infamous. So some women are attracted to serial killers, murderers, Jeffrey Dahmer, people like that because they crave attention. They want to be part of that celebrity. So rather than being or having a chance with a real celebrity, chances are pretty good. If you're a woman and you're attracted to a Charles Manson, a Ted Bundy, a Jeffrey Dahmer, and you're writing to them and giving them attention because it's pretty boring in prison, that they're going to give you attention back. And maybe they feel that they can capitalize on that, a book, a movie deal, who knows, or just some kind of fame would come into their life. I think it's fair to say that many of them are psychopaths and narcissists. And these groups of people often attract women because they have the ability to be charismatic, no doubt, and to charm vulnerable people who are susceptible to this kind of manipulation, he says. He finally touches upon the character traits of the serial killers themselves and how they are attractive to women. Narcissists are very grandiose, and they're very entitled to things like sex and relationships. Psychopaths are the same, so they have this inflated self-esteem. But they also are very charming, and they're calculating, and they're quite devious, so they're very good at knowing what to say to make the women feel special, to feel loved, to feel privileged, to feel that they are part of like some sort of special bond. So the murderer, the Charles Manson, the Jeffrey Dahmer, the Ted Bundy, they have a charismatic way about them to make this woman feel wanted, to make her feel desired. Maybe she's not getting that on the outside, with men. Maybe she's had a bad experience. Who knows? But they, in turn, are looking to capitalize on that. Dr. Das told Female he started his channel because he saw numerous creators sharing inaccurate information online, incorrectly psychoanalyzing people, and coming to the wrong conclusions. So this doctor started his platform on YouTube because he saw other people giving out wrong information, and he wanted to correct that and be a viable and accurate source. Now, again, I'm not standing, I don't know this man, I don't know, so I don't want you to say, well, Michael led me to this channel and this is what happened. No, I'm telling you what he said in the article. But if you choose, go on and look at it, and if he can be helpful, great. He added that as interest in true crime is growing with an increasing amount of content available, viewers are increasingly seeking out expert views and analysis when it comes to criminals. He explains so much content is put out now on true crime, from the professional content, from Netflix to podcasts. That's true. I mean, I do some things on crime, obviously, mostly mob related, but it's true. There's so much content. It's probably the number one content out there. People are interested in true crime. So this doctor wanted to give everybody a fair shake and accurate information. So it's almost like you need to find a new angle. It's not just enough to tell you about murders, because people have heard of hundreds of cases by now. I think it's really interesting angle, which is probably one of the most complex as well, is to understand why people do what they do. He said every patient was male, every patient had committed quite serious violence, and some of them had killed people. And this he found out as a junior doctor. One of his placements involved working for 6 months in a medium secure unit in North London. He said their backstories are fascinating. There's always something you can trace back to the reason they end up living a violent lifestyle, and it's often the same compounding factors. Poverty, abuse, drug or alcohol use is a huge factor as well. People, again, we have reasons or conditions that can cause people to do violent crimes, but it doesn't justify it. It's a reason, and it doesn't make it right. When you break the law, you break the law, and you got to, face some kind of consequences. Going back to the Menendez boys, again, I think they were treated unfairly at their second trial. The first trial that they went to ended up in a hung jury because they were allowed to talk about the abuse. And a lot of people believed that they were abused and couldn't convict these young men. For some reason, the second trial, the judge who presided over the first trial said, I'm not going to let any of the evidence of abuse come in. And as a result, they got convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole. And I think that's very unfair. Like I said, I spent time with them. I had a lot of conversation with them over 11 months. And I believe without a doubt, I'd take a polygraph test that they were abused. There's no question about it. And that information should have been admitted into the case. And I think we would see a different result. And hopefully, I'm pulling for them. I hope they do get out on this latest appeal. They've done enough time, 30 some odd years. They're both married now to what I heard were two nice women. Eric has a child. Let them get out and start their life over again. And at the age of 50, why not? They've done enough time. I understand they're model prisoners. Let them go. But very interesting. Again, if you have any comments, ladies, men, if you know of anybody that's been attracted to one of these, people in jail like that, Charles Manson, Ted Bundy, Dahmer, this other guy, Watts, crazy. If you know anybody, send me a comment. We just like to learn about it a little bit. Maybe it'd be another source of another video, whatever. And again, ladies, if you're going through an abusive relationship, you need to get out of it. It's not going to end. It's not going to stop. You don't deserve it. Don't let anybody tell you any differently. It's time to make a break. And if you send us a comment and we think it's serious enough and we can point you in the right direction, we'll try to do that. That's it for today, my friends. Hope you enjoyed it. How do I always leave you? Same way. Never going to change. Be safe. We got an election coming up. People say, oh my God, I'm not getting into politics. Just be safe. We got trouble at our borders. It's a fact, not a fantasy. Ladies, be safe. That's the whole content of this video. Be safe, ladies. Be healthy. Got to do it the right way, people. We only got one life to live. May as well be as healthy as you possibly can. And yes, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. God bless each and every one of you and your families, all your loved ones, your towns, your communities. And yes, God bless America. I'll see you next time. Take care.